Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another Drytron video. I got a new mic, as you can probably tell, so hopefully it sounds a lot better now. This video I will go over some tips and tricks that you need to know when piloting the Drytron deck. Some of these things are not very obvious. These include some combo lines as well as some other interactions that come up against certain decks. So hopefully this video is helpful. Okay, so the first tip that I'm going to show you here is about Cyber Angel Natasha. She's a very strong going second card in that you can steal your opponent's monsters. So if you're playing against an opponent, for example here, and your opponent has a monster, you can send your Natasha to the graveyard, wherever it is, right there. But you'll notice that you will not be able to immediately activate it to steal your opponent's monster. And the reason for this is because Natasha is a ritual monster, and it's a rule of the game that all ritual monsters have to be first ritual summoned before you can special summon them by other ways. It doesn't say this on the card, of course, which is a little confusing, but it applies to all ritual monsters and extra deck monsters as well. So, for example, if I am to now summon Natasha, since this is a ritual summon, I can do that. And don't forget to gain life points, it's free. Always do that when you get your Natasha back. It's literally just free life points. Okay, so now that I have properly summoned Natasha, which is what we refer to it as, it's called proper summoning, now we can activate it to take your opponent's monsters. And it retains the status if it's sent to the graveyard again. So even if I send it to the graveyard now and my opponent has another monster, then I can use it again, as long as I have another Cyber Angel to banish. So that's a pretty cool trick. Another thing to be aware of is that you need to be a little careful about your zone placements. So normally your standard end board is going to look something like this. You're going to have Herald on board, you're going to have Beatrice, and you want to have IP Masquerena in addition to that to be able to link summon to Nightmare Unicorn during your opponent's turn. But if you set up your board like this, you're going to notice a little bit of a problem. So when I want to summon IP Masquerena, it requires 2 non-link monsters. So you can't link Linkuriboh off. So I'll just say Gamma, and then it'll force you to select Beatrice. And if you're wondering why that is because for link monsters, when you're link summoning them from the extra deck, they have to either go to the extra monster zone or to a zone that a link monster points to. So the only zone that Linkuriboh is pointing to, or that any link monster is pointing to, is the one that you summoned Beatrice under. So this is an easy mistake to avoid. You just summon Beatrice to any of the other zones, just not one that Linkuriboh is pointing to. Otherwise, you will either not make IP Masquerena or you have to link off your Beatrice, which is not good. Now for this one, let's say you try to go into Mu Beta to try to get its effect and get another Drytron name. And your opponent wants to negate this with infinite impermanence. So what happens if you try to ritual summon here? Well, you will have to use the entire Mu Beta, because infinite impermanence, and this is also true of Effect Veiler, Forbidden Droplet, and a lot of other cards, it negates all of the effects of the monster that it targets. So for Mu Beta, the effect to detach materials from it is part of its effect. And since it's negated, you can't do that. So you have to use the whole thing here if you ritual summon here. Another tip here is that I've seen some lists running Gamma as a hand trap. You should absolutely not do that in this deck, or run Kaijus. And the reason is because of the Drytron special summoning restrictions. So as you can see for Alpha and Zeta and all of them, they say you cannot special summon monsters except monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set the turn you activate this effect. So that means before or after. If you special summon a monster that can be normal summoned or set, then you cannot activate Drytron monsters for the rest of the turn. But if you activated a Drytron monster, you cannot special summon a monster that can be normal summoned or set for the rest of the turn. So that's what the wording during the turn you activate this effect means. Whichever one you do first, you cannot do the other one second. So how does that apply to Gamma? Well, Gamma itself cannot be normal summoned or set. That's fine. The issue is that when you're activating Gamma, you have to summon Psy-Frame Driver. Psy-Frame Driver is a normal monster, so it can be normal summoned or set. So if you do that first, you cannot activate any Drytrons, or likewise, if you activated a Drytron before, you cannot activate Gamma. The game will not let you do that. So I would not play this in the deck at all. If you're playing in a tournament, going second, I guess it's not the worst. You can side it in if you know you're going second, but I mean, Herald of Orange Light fulfills the same purpose in the deck, so I really just want to run it. And the same goes with Kaijus here. For example, Gamma Seal is one of the more popular ones, but this is true of all Kaijus. All of them can be normal summoned or set. Obviously, you rarely do that. You rarely see that happen, but they're usually special summoned to your opponent's field. But yeah, you can't do that during the same turn that you activated Drytron. So don't play Kaijus either. Something that may come up, but is pretty rare, that you should definitely know about it, is that when you're making Mew Beta, it just requires 2 level 1 monsters. They do not have to both be Drytrons. So you can actually use Eva by normal summoning it, and then overlaying into Mew Beta. However, keep in mind when you are ritual summoning and you want to detach from Mew Beta, you're only going to be able to detach the Drytrons because Eva is not a machine type, so it would not count for the requirement for Medionis. Another trick is on using Union Carrier. I've seen a lot of people wondering why that's in the extra deck and whether it's important. And the answer is yes, it's very important. So for example, here's one possible play that you can only do with Union Carrier. If you open just Zeta Benten, which is not the greatest hand, it's not going to get you full combo or anything. But you can still actually do something here, which is pretty nice. And you can link these two into Union Carrier since they're both light. Union Carrier equips itself, preferably with Eva from your deck. And now it is a 2000 attack machine. So you can actually summon Herald of Ultimate, for example. You started with a not great hand, but you still have 2 Omni Negates in your hand, which is really nice. And another one that I want to show is for Linkuriboh. Again, another thing people are asking a lot is how important Linkuriboh is, and I would argue it's essential. You have to have it in your deck. It's not negotiable. It's not just a thing that's useful sometimes. So for example, let's say you open Nova Zeta. If you don't have Linkuriboh, what are you going to do here? You can do Zeta Tributes Alpha. Okay, add a ritual spell. And Alpha Tribute Zeta, that's the only thing you can tribute. What are you going to add here? If you have something buried in your hand, I guess this might work. But let me show you something much better. Since your Drytrons can only activate in a hand or the graveyard, what if we were to get the Alpha in the graveyard first? Because we know Alpha Zeta is full combo. So let's use Linkuriboh solely as a source, as a way to get Alpha in the graveyard. And now you can do Alpha Tribute Zeta. And then Zeta Tribute Benten and go through your full combo with the Linkuriboh on board as an extra body. So it's actually better than just Alpha Zeta. So that's why you have to absolutely have Linkuriboh in your extra deck. It's not optional, and is one of the highest priority things that I believe you should craft for your extra deck. After, of course, Herald of the Arclight and Mew Beta, you need those even more, but this comes up way too often because of how important Nova is in the deck. Another card you may be wondering about in the deck list that you've seen is Downerd Magician. So let me show you here. the Zeus plays. If you're going second, sometimes you want to make Zeus. It's a very, very powerful extra deck monster. So what you can do is go into Literalesque Assembled Nightingale and attack twice directly. By the way, it also has an effect that you can detach one material from this card, and until the end of this turn, Literalesque monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So if they try to hit you with something like Torrential Tribute, you can just detach one material and prevent that from being destroyed. But you can attack twice since it has 2 material, and you can attack directly. Okay, and then main phase 2, you can go for Zeus here, but the thing with Zeus is when you're activating its effect to wipe the entire field, you have to detach 2 materials. So if I just summon Zeus here, I'll have Zeus and then Assembled Nightingale and then the 2 Drytron monsters. So that's 3 materials. So when I activate Zeus, I'll detach 2 of those materials and I'll only have 1 left, which doesn't let me do anything. But if I summon Downerd Magician first, which if you read it, it says you can Xyz summon this card by using a rank 3 or lower Xyz monster you control as material during main phase 2, which works just fine. If I summon this card first, and then I summon Zeus, now Zeus has 4 materials, which means I can use his effect to wipe the entire board twice. This actually makes a really big difference, and is enough of a reason to run this card Downerd Magician in the extra deck. Another thing that you should definitely know about this deck is the wording on Herald. You may notice when you're playing that there are some things that you cannot negate and are unsure why, so I'm going to explain that. Let's say you're playing against Virtual World. Ignore all of these other cards. This is just the easiest way I could show this setup here. So let's say your opponent plays Kowloon. Okay, so here they're going to activate 1 Virtual World gate from your deck. So here you can activate Herald to negate this. Okay, but let's say you don't do that, and they activate King Long. Okay, so now King Long is on the field, which has the effect that you can target 1 effect monster on the field and negate its effects. So what happens if your opponent tries to activate that here? So they banish 1 Virtual World card from the graveyard and target Herald. Now as you see, you didn't get the prompt to negate with Herald. Now why is that? Well, that's because of the exact wording on Herald. So what it says is when your opponent would special summon a monsters or activates a spell/trap card or a monster effect, you can send 1 fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate the special summoner activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So this exact wording here, spell/trap card or monster effect, makes a very big difference. So in this case, when your opponent activated Kowloon, they activated a card, which means placing a card face up on the field, like what they did when they activated Kowloon. Now when King Long is already on the field, they're not activating a card anymore. The effect that they were using to negate Herald of Ultimateness is a spell effect. So they were just activating the effect of King Long. And because they're activating an effect and not a card, you cannot negate with Herald. So this also applies to spell or trap effects that activate in the graveyard. Since they aren't activating a spell or trap card, which means placing face up on the field, they're just activating an effect, and Herald actually cannot respond to that because it does not fall under the criteria of what Herald can negate. So you definitely need to know that. Next, I will show you how to kill your opponent with Borrelsword Dragon. So this is a Link 4 monster and is one of the more popular options in this deck for ending game, since it does a lot of damage just by itself. Borrelsword plus any Drytron or Herald is exactly 8,000 damage. So first of all, since it's a Link 4 that requires 3+ effect monsters. Sorry, okay, yeah. So it's a Link 4 and requires 3+ effect monsters. All of these requirements do have to be met when you're making Borrelsword Dragon. So you cannot do Nightmare Unicorn plus 1 monster like you can do with Access Code Talker, because Access Code Talker requires only 2 plus effect monsters. Borrelsword Dragon requires at least 3, so you have to meet all of those requirements. So in this case, we do have that. 1, 2, 3. Yep. So what we do here is we go to the battle phase. We want to first attack with our Herald. You don't have to attack first with Herald, but it's the simplest way to do this. Then we can activate Borrelsword's effect to change Herald to defense, and then attack. And since we use its effect to change a monster to defense, we can attack again. So that is exactly lethal. And even if your opponent had a monster in attack position, Borrelsword Dragon has the ability to gain attack. So you could first attack with Borrelsword Dragon into your opponent's monster, and regardless of how high the attack of that monster is, Borrelsword will do exactly 3,000 damage, since it gains half the attack of your opponent's monster, and your opponent's monster's attack gets halved. So mathematically that works out to exactly 3,000. So then Borrelsword will gain attack, then you can attack with Herald directly, and then you can use its effect, since it's a quick effect, to change Herald to defense and attack one more time. So that would do even more than 8,000 damage in that case. That is all for this video. As always, please leave a like and a subscription if you enjoyed this content and if it helped you. I got more on the way as more Master Duel content releases. I will keep my Twitch link in the description, as well as my Duelist ID, so you can follow me and see my replays that get saved. Peace.